Did you know that studies show that divorce is one of the most stressful things that a human can experience? In this video, we are going to talk about how to cope with divorce and stress that comes with it.
What specific parts of a divorce cause stress? I'm going to go through 3 points with you today that I believe cause lots of stress in a divorce. And the first point is the initial shock. And what I mean by the initial shock of divorce, it is when either the person who is filing the papers or receiving the papers. I've never been on the end of filing the papers, but I've been on the end of receiving the papers a couple of times. I think it's the shock of it's talked about, you kind of know something is going on, or you know that it's being contemplated. But when you actually see those papers and you get delivered those papers, it's like, whoa, this is real. This is really happening. You could have been going through counseling, or you could be working through to try to resolve issues, that sort of thing. So I think that initial shock causes a lot of stress. And I'm sure on the other end, just filing the divorce papers, that's got to cause a lot of stress too, because there's all these thoughts that come into, should I do it? Shouldn't I do it? Is this the right thing? And unless, of course, you're in a traumatic situation where it's painfully obvious that it just needs to be done, then maybe it would be a relief and it wouldn't cause stress. But that was the first point, the initial shock of it. And then the second point is what the new reality will look like. So once it's been decided that a divorce is happening, depending on the state that you're in, meaning the physical state that you're in, the process and the length of time it takes to actually get a divorce can take a long time, up to a year, maybe more in some cases, depending on all of the lawyers involved and everything else. So it's like the stress of not knowing what the new reality is going to look like. What's going to be the plan for parenting, co-parenting? What's the financial settlement? What all of these things can cause stress because it's unknown and you have no idea what's going to happen and how that's going to impact your life. So I think that it's kind of like a sandwich. It's like you've got the bread on either side, but right in the middle, this unknown. I think from my perspective, that causes the most stress. Not knowing what the new reality is going to look like, not knowing the impact of this event and how it's going to impact your life right now or in the very near future. And then ongoing, if you have to pay a bunch of alimony or you get a bunch of alimony, it's going to materially change the way you live your life. And then the third point of stress that I think divorce can cause is the reality, the new life. So now it's like, oh, okay, so that's been settled, everything's been done, and now, boom, you're all of a sudden emerged into this new life. The co-parenting plan begins, or the alimony payments begin, and you're like faced with, wow, now I've got to restart my relational life. That can be stressful, especially if you don't have places to go and a way to lean on other folks. And I think that's what you're going to talk about a little bit, is how that stress that I kind of talked about, how it impacts your mind and body. So why don't you say a little bit more about that?
Well, stress, I think first off to know is that it's a normal reaction that happens to everyone. We all have it, even in the situation where you said it may be a relief, but also, even though there's a relief, stress comes with it because, to your point of a new life and how you're going to move forward and all of that. And so your body produces physical and emotional responses to stress. That's also normal. So it's something to be aware of. Also, stress can be positive or it can be negative. For example, if you're taking an exam or something like that, you have something big that you care about that's going to be a positive influence on your life and you want to do well. You may have some stress, but it's like a short-term stress. Something like divorce can be for some people a long-term stress. And so that's where you might start to see changes in your physical well-being as well as your emotional well-being. And so stress in your body can cause, physically, it can cause things like literally aches and pains. You can hold stress in certain areas of your body, in a shoulder, in a knee, in your stomach, with your digestive system, with your circulation, just all different ways, which is so crazy to think that stress can actually do that to your body, especially your cardiovascular system. It's very bad on your heart to have long-term stress. Like I said, there is a difference between the short-term and in the long term. So that's important to note as well. Short-term positive stresses don't really affect you the way that the long-term ones do. So that's like a constant stress that you're dealing with that you can't get rid of. It can also lead to mentally it can lead to anxiety, depression, having panic attacks. It can lead to overall compulsive behaviors. You can start drinking more excessively than you might normally. Some people start gambling more, compulsive shopping, even compulsive sex. Any type of compulsive behavior, a lot of people will turn to get some sort of relief from that stress just to kind of block it out. So it's like they're not healing themselves from it, but they are just trying to repress it by covering it up with something else. And so all of those things that I gave examples of can be ways that we deal with stress. And so those are some negative ways that stress can really affect your mind and your body. And Robert is going to give us some methods for coping with these things. What have you got for us, Robert?
Thank you so much. That was so powerful what you talked about there. All of those things, it just made me realize on another level how debilitating stress can be if you let it go uncontrolled. And I love what you shared about the short-term stress versus the long-term stress. We're going to have stress. It's going to happen. So you differentiating that, I think, could be a lifeline for a lot of people. It's like, okay, you're going to have some stress, but don't stick in it a long time. And what I want to talk about are 4 points and 4 ways that you can really cope with that stress and get out of that stress cycle. Because as Alana said, there are no positives to being in that stress cycle. So I am just like so blessed to be able to share 4 ways that you could potentially cope with it. Number 1 is get in community. Make sure you are not isolated. Get around other people that you know, love, and trust. You want to be in a community of people. For us, it's Jesus people, people that are following Jesus, that'll give you truth with grace, that'll be there and give you those, not only the empathy and the compassion, also the truth and the kick in the pants when you need to just move on to the next step in your life. So get into a community of people who know, love, and admire you and are for you. The second point is have a close group of friends that you can confide in. So the first one is a community of people. So don't isolate. Community of folks you can hang out with, and they know what you're going through, and it's not some big shock, and people aren't whispering behind their back and all that kind of stuff. The next step is have a close group of friends. So this might be just 1 or 2 people that you can talk to about anything, that when that stress does come upon you, you can reach out to them in the moment and be able to share with them what's going on and have a listening ear. A lot of times, if you can just say it out loud, feel heard by somebody else, it's going to relieve a lot of that stress and get you out of that short term or out of that potential for long-term stress that Alana talked about that can be so dangerous. And the third point is talk to someone with wisdom. That could be a pastor, that could be a mentor, somebody that maybe isn't a close friend, but you know has gone through a divorce successfully. That's why pastors are always good, because a lot of them have to deal with this all the time. So they're very accustomed to dealing with it, and they've learned over the years some great ways to cope with it as well. So don't be afraid to reach out to those people, because they want to help and they want to be there for you. They won't judge you. And if you come across one that is judging, run, get away from that, because that isn't what you need in these moments. So be discerning. Just because they are a pastor, maybe you don't even go to church, and you say, well, I'm just going to go to the local church and find a pastor. Doesn't mean they're all created equal, because they are human just like we are. So reach out to somebody that has wisdom. And then the 4th point that I want to make is read books, read articles. We have so much available to us on the internet. There are so many books out there on how to cope with the stress of divorce, because it is so rampant in our society today. There are just tons of resources. Ask friends who have gone through divorces, what books did they read? What got them through it? Because there's so much out there. And if you're a person that you like to research and you like to learn on your own, and then you can apply, do that. Start a study group. Find other folks who are going through divorce. Chances are in this world today, there's somebody going through it at about the same time you do, somebody in your circle that's going through it. So create a group where you study something together and you read those things together. I think that is all important. Reading the Bible is another big, I talk about reading books. That's one of the books to put on the top of your list. Read the Bible and understand how to deal with traumatic situations and where you need to turn to in those situations. So, Alana, do you have any personal stories you'd like to go through, a little testimony that would help people through divorce stress stress? Any encouragement for viewers who might be experiencing the same thing?
Yes, actually. For me, what helped me through divorce stress was first and foremost God. So wherever you are in your spiritual journey, I think that that is the first place that you need to turn. For me, it was to God, and then yoga and meditation. I was really doing a lot of meditation during that time just to clear my mind, because it's good to just kind of take all of those thoughts that are swirling in your mind during that time frame about different situations, or dwelling on what happened, or dwelling on what could have been, or what went wrong, or like it's just real easy to get caught up in that in your head. So I think that handing it over to God, and then spending some time, quiet time with yourself is key. It was for me. And then also a good point, what you were talking about, Robert, is obviously community is always a number one place to turn. And for me, it was like my church family was really supportive of me during that time frame. My friends were supportive. And so that was key for me, not to isolate. Yes, I might have taken a little time just to process, but good to just have that support system, even if it's texting someone or a conversation on the phone. So for me, that really helped. And also another point was focusing on my new goals, because when you go through a divorce, you have all these goals with the other person of what you think life is going to look like moving forward. And then all of a sudden that's kind of snatched away as far as a couple. So you may have some of those individual things that you might have had before the marriage that you kind of maybe want to start putting more focus back into, if that makes sense. For me, it was just getting a new focus on my goals and really diving into them and putting all of my attention there and moving forward and putting my all into that. That really helped me to not get distracted with what I wanted my future to look like and where I wanted to go from there. So I think that if I could give you any encouragement, it would be to just take the new awareness of the divorce. Don't dwell on what happened with he said, she said, all of that stuff. Don't dwell on that. That's in the past. Move forward with a new mindset and just a new way of thinking, and take the awareness. I'm sure that each of you had your things that you could improve and that maybe weren't the best. So take that as an opportunity to have the awareness of how you should move forward in a future relationship, if that's what you see yourself moving towards sometime in the future. And just really work on yourself and work on maybe the pieces of you that need to be improved, because we can all improve always. And so that is what I would offer for some encouragement. How about you, Robert? Do you have any testimonials?
I think you did a fantastic job. I think we can wrap this thing up right now.
Awesome. Well, if you found this video helpful, hit the like button and subscribe with the notification bell down below, and comment with any questions you may have.
Join us on this amazing journey from isolation to community, where the next step is freedom.